Do you know how to write a resume, or would you feel comfortable and confident writing one if you had to? My name's Lucy. I'm a career counsellor, and I'm just going to walk you through the process of writing your very first resume now, and I'm going to use an example to do that. So on the screen in front of you, you can see a resume template. This is a Word document resume template. It's pretty standard, it's pretty simple, and it entirely fits on one page, which is really important because employers don't really want to read a lot of information when we're talking about your first resume. They just kind of want to get in, get all of the things that they need to know, and then make a decision about whether or not they call you in for an interview. So we want to keep things short, we want to keep things simple, and we want to keep things really, really clear. Now, Word documents are a really great way to start with your resume. There are lots of templates around. We have this one available through Study Work Grow, but you can find them all over the place. Just search for Google for resume templates, and you can also download this from the comments that are underneath. So if you like, you can always download that and then follow along with me now as we go through and construct our resume. So I'm going to go through a bit at a time, and I'm going to explain to you what I'm doing so that you understand why I've done it the way I've done it, and so that you can do it that way or make it your own as well. Because at the end of the day, this is your document. There are no legal rules around resumes or around CVs. You can write them however you choose to write them. Some people who are really creative, they do video resumes. They include all sorts of different information. So don't feel like I'm telling you the rules that you have to stick to. What I'm going to tell you is how to write your very first resume when you don't have a lot of experience and skills, and when you mightn't have a lot to put on it. And the aim here is to be getting a very entry-level, very first kind of steps job. So this is a resume that should be able to get you in the door for that first kind of interview. So the first thing we want to do is we want to write our name. So we're going to be writing the resume of a fictional person called Jordan Taylor. And we're going to want to make sure that we do a couple of things. The first thing is we are going to want to check your spelling. I cannot tell you how many times I have been reviewing people's resumes and they have not spelt their own name correctly, or they've failed to put a capital letter for the start of their first or their second names. Now, if you choose not to use a capital letter, for example, for spelling your name, that isn't necessarily a conversation you're going to want to have with an employer on your first interview about why you've chosen to do that. And it's totally fine for you to do that, but you don't really want to have that conversation. So it's just much better if you always use capitals, because you're not going to be giving any flags to an employer that you have had some sort of issues with spelling your name. Same goes for where you live, so your town and your state. So now I can put in a fictional place. So I'm going to put in Careerville, which is my town, and I believe that we can use South Stateland as our state. You don't have to put your actual physical home address on a resume, particularly for young people. I wouldn't recommend giving out that kind of information to people that you don't know. It might be that your employer, in the process of your job application, actually asks for your home address. And provided that you feel comfortable giving that to them, then you can do so. You're probably going to need to provide that home address if you do actually get the job. But at this stage, it's just important that they know where you're living. And the reason why it's important that they know that is because they want to know if you're a local, and they want to kind of make a decision about whether or not they think that you're going to be able to get to the place of work. So if you've put somewhere in this location that's quite different to where the job is that you're applying for, you might want to explain that in your cover letter or in your application to say, currently living here, but going to be relocating here, so I could be close by to that job. But it's good for them to know that. Next, we're going to move on and we're going to put in our email address. So when we're talking about email addresses, lots of young people, lots of grown-ups as well, have really random email addresses. And these might be fun. They might have weird spellings, might have numbers at the end of them. It might just have been whatever you could get via Hotmail. That's totally okay for you to have that email address, but you're going to have less questions from an employer. It's going to be less of a flag if you've got something really boring and really simple that just tells them who you are, that looks professional. So if you can have something that's got your name in it, like this is Jordan K. Taylor @gmail.com. Now, you might not be able to get that particular email address, but if you can get something that's got your name in it, they know that it's you, it's no weird spellings, there's no weird numbers, there's no flags there, because the whole point of this resume is to get you through the door with there being no flags for an employer. So nothing that an employer might question and go, oh, that's a bit odd. And the same thing with your phone number. So you're going to want to put your phone number in here because you're going to want them to be able to reach out to you and get in touch with you. if they decide to offer you a job. So we're going to put our mobile number in there. If you are applying for a job not in your local area, or if you need to be using some sort of area code, make sure you're using that as well. You want to make it as easy as possible for that employer to take the next step and give you a call if they think that you're the right person for their job. Okay, so in our one-page resume template, right at the top, we tend to have this section that we call a career statement. And this is supposed to be really short, like an elevator pitch style statement about who you are. It gives you an opportunity to be a bit freer. So the rest of your resume is quite structured. It talks about specific things, but in this top career statement section, you can kind of write what you like to some extent. What we recommend is that you change this for each job that you're applying for, and that you really address the criteria that they're looking for in that job. You use it as an opportunity to make it really, really clear that you are actually interested in the particular job that you're applying for, and that you think that you have what it takes to do that job. So, for example, if I was looking at writing my own statement for this, Jordan, I'd be saying, I'm looking to channel my customer service skills. And it's really important that if the job description has mentioned that you're going to need customer service skills, you've flagged right at the start, the very first thing that they're reading is, hey, I have customer service skills and I'm keen to use them. And my team-orientated mindset developed through both academic and extracurricular activities into a practical setting. I aim to contribute productive atmosphere while delivering excellent customer experience. So I've got 3 lines, which is about the total that I'm going to want. Any more than that, and they're probably going to have tuned out by that point. So you want to keep it really, really sweet, really short and sweet. And you're not going to want to repeat anything that you've said in your cover letter here. That's really important so that you're not duplicating information. They're not going to get bored and be able to read through. And also that you're addressing some of those criteria that are in the job description. We're wanting to make sure that we use spell check so that there are no spelling errors, no grammatical errors in this top section. If they've got to read through 100 job applications, 100 different resumes, and you have a spelling or a grammatical error in this top section and you haven't proofread that, that could be grounds for the employer to instantly put your resume to one side and move on to the next person. Because let's face it, if they're having to read through 100 different resumes, the easiest thing they can do to cull people is to get rid of those people who've made those really simple errors, those really not lazy, but almost errors where you've shown that you don't really, really care about this application. And one of the ways they can do that is if you've got a spelling or a grammatical error, then they just move you to one side. I don't think that's right, but that is what tends to happen. So please use your spell check. Please also check it with another person when you've written that statement, just to make sure that you're using all the correct grammar and the correct spelling. So once we've got our statement in, then we're going to want to move to our next section. So you're going to want to put your education in here. So Jordan has been to Careerville College, and they started there in 2021. Let's leave that, and they're still there. We're still attending Careerville College. You don't have to put the grade level that you're in. Some people choose to put the grade level that you're in. If it's relevant for your job, then you might want to put that grade level in, but you don't have to be that kind of level of specific. And then what we're going to use these bullet points for underneath is we're just going to say some of the things that Jordan has achieved while they've been at school. So we want it to keep it to the things that are really juicy and that the employer is really going to be like, oh, cool, that's great. I'm going to use that. Or I think that could be useful if this person comes and works for me. So if you've got any kind of academic excellence awards, if you've got, say, first place in a subject, if you have scored really well in some sort of maths competition or science competition, then you can include that in this section. And we're going to be specific here. So we're going to say that Jordan did that in 2022 and in 2023. They don't need every single specific detail, but they do want enough so that they can kind of reconcile it and put it in a box and make sense of that thing. So sometimes we might also want to mention that we've participated in other things. So actively participated in the Student Representative Council. Also checking my spelling again in 2023, so they know which year it was in. It's recent, and also it's just been for 1 year. And I'm going to write as an advocate for fellow students. So this is, I'm selling myself in writing that. I'm not just saying I have done the SRC and assuming that the employer knows what that means. I'm saying, yes, I participated in the SRC for this length of time, and I did this because I wanted to be an advocate for my fellow students. So that kind of additional information, it doesn't take up a lot of space in your resume, but it says to the employer, no, I care. I know what I'm talking about, and I'm probably going to be somebody who's looking for ways to help, looking for ways to be a team player and assist if I come and work in your business. If you've done anything else, if you've participated in any kind of volunteering activities or any kind of group activities, you might want to pop that in as well. So, for example, led the annual Clean Up Campus Day in 2022. So we could put that in there, or if you've done anything else like that, if you've participated in some sort of school play or you've represented the school on a sports team, you could put those kind of things in there as well. Try to keep it to things that are really relevant to the job that you're applying for. So it doesn't, especially when there's not a lot else that you're going to be able to put on your resume at this stage, you're going to want to put a lot of things down. But if, say, you have 10 different achievements or activities that you've done or things that you've participated in, you kind of got to cut it down to maybe the top 3 or 4. Think about the ones that are most relevant to the job. So if I'm going for a role in hospitality where I'm going to be serving customers, and I've also, while I was at school, worked in the school canteen, I would definitely be wanting to put this in this section so that the employer can see I've done something that's relevant for the job that I'm applying for right in that spot. Okay, if you have another school that you have been to recently in secondary schooling and you think that it's important that you put that in there so that it's clear where you've been, you can include that as well. Don't be putting your primary school in here. Don't be putting school that you attended for 6 weeks or anything like that. An employer doesn't care. An employer isn't going to know where you want to know where you went to primary school. They're not going to care if you've gone somewhere for 6 months. It's just for the sake of clarity. If, for example, you've only just moved to your new school, you might want to include the years that you spent at your previous school, and that way you can include those awards and achievements and things that you did at that school as well. So I'm going to assume that Jordan has only ever been at Careerville College, and so we're going to delete that section there. Then the next thing in the education section that we know a lot of young people have is they might have participated in different various short courses. Now, it's okay if you haven't participated in any short courses, but these can be a really great way to boost your resume. You don't have to achieve an award. You don't have to compete with anyone. You can just enroll, go and participate in a short course, and then be able to stick that on your resume. So if you do have some short courses, you can put them here. If you don't have any short courses, that is definitely something I would recommend looking out for because they can be, like I said, a really great way to boost your resume. And we can include all sorts of things in here. So I'm going to include introductory first aid that we did through the Red Cross in 2023. Oh, not 2023. I'm also going to include a school-based leadership workshop that I did, or that John did. Leadership workshop. It doesn't matter that it was a part of a school activity. If you've done something that's different to what other people would have done or something that's even just relevant to this job, make sure you stick it in there. So we're going to do a leadership workshop, and we're going to do that through the Student Representative Council. And we're going to have done that in 2020. When do we participate in the council? 23. And we're also going to have participated in a business boot camp. So these might be run in your local area. They might be run by different entrepreneurship youth entrepreneurship groups. And you're more than welcome to include these sorts of things in as well. Entrepreneur Academy, and we did that in 2021. Now, how you style this section, how you style all of these sections is up to you. You might choose to, instead of having a little dash there, you might go business boot camp by Entrepreneur Academy in 2021, for example. The key thing is that you're going to want to maintain consistency. So you're going to want to use the same conventions across the document, whatever you use. I'm not correct in that I'm using these little dashes. If you want to use something different, you can 100% go for that. Just make sure that they're all really consistent, because an employer, when things aren't consistent, employers can spot them and they start to think, did somebody else help you write this? Have they edited this resume? It's not a clean one that they've created just for this job description. All those kinds of questions start going through their minds. So whatever you can do to like remove any of those questions from an employer, that's what we really want to do. Okay, so the next section down in our resume after we've got education is the experience section. And this is a section that sometimes with young people who are still at school, you might not have a lot to put in this experience section. It is a section that can really be molded, and it's designed to show that you have the experience that you need to be able to start in the position that you're applying for. So don't get caught up with thinking that the only thing you can put in this section is actual paid work. You can put lots of different things in this section to show that you have experience that are work-related activities. People are not expecting kids who are applying for their first job to have previous paid work experience. That's the whole point. You're applying for a first job. So they're not necessarily going to be expecting to see that, but they do kind of want to see that you've done something, or that you can justify that you've done something that's kind of related to work and that you might actually be ready to turn up on time, be reliable, that it's going to be as little a learning curve as possible for you when you do turn up to that first job. So something that a lot of young people have is they might have work experience. So if Jordan, for example, has done work experience as an administration officer, we could include that. And then we're also going to include on this line the organization that they did work experience with. Work experience as an administration officer in Careerville Regional Council. Now I'm bolding the job here and I'm leaving the name of the organization not bolded, and that's just for clarity. So it's really quick and easy for them to see exactly what my job title was and then where I did that job. If you did paid work, so say if you were a team member, you might want to delete that work experience section and just have administration officer or team member or whatever that job is. But because it was work experience, we want that to be really clear from the start that you didn't actually work as an administration officer for Careerville Regional Council. So we're going to put work experience in front of that. Now, most people don't do work experience over multiple years. So say we did that in 2023, we're just going to put the year that we did that there. And then you've got this little section with your bullet points again, where you can really list your key responsibilities. Now, later on in your career, when you've done some paid work experience, you might actually include in this section some of your top achievements. So say you worked on a really great project, or you handled a really difficult situation, or you supervised some people, or you did something like that, then you might want to include that in here. But at this stage, we're probably going to be just looking for your key responsibilities. So the employer can kind of go, okay, you did work experience as an administration officer, so what does that mean? Because I know what I think an administration officer means, but your ideas might be slightly different to the employer. So the employer's kind of going to want to see you justifying that role and really explaining what you did. And as we've got in the second point here, use the same keywords to describe the skills and the tasks as the employer has used in their job description. So even if you would use a different term, like for example, teamwork and collaboration is a really good example. If you would say that you've participated in teamwork, but in the job description, they've been really clear they've used that word collaboration a lot, use the collaboration, use the word that was in the job description in your resume. And that's important for a couple of reasons. A, it just reduces friction. Also, if they're using any kind of automated resume reading service, any kind of where a robot will be essentially reading your resume, they're going to be looking for those keywords. And it might be that they put in collaboration as a keyword they want to look for, but they might not have put in teamwork. And that software might not be clever enough to know that you've said teamwork and that means the same thing as collaboration. So when you're writing this section in particular, make sure you're using those words that were in the job description. So in this, I want to explain what I did in my work experience. So I completed some unpaid, and it's important to state that it was unpaid work experience where I worked alongside the administration team As part of that, I undertook data entry tasks, managed files, and arranged for senior staff. And I experienced working in a complex and busy organization managing multiple priorities. And once again, we're going to check our spelling, organization, and then we're going to want to delete these templated ones. So in putting this kind of information in, I've said a little bit about the tasks that I've done in this one and who I've worked with. The employer is going to be aware that during a week of work experience, you have only done so many tasks. They're not going to be expecting you to have done everything, but you've been put this in there, you've been clear about what you did, and that's also going to give them the opportunity to ask you questions about that during the interview and for you to draw on that experience when you're giving your answers in the interview. And it might be that you can say, well, hey, I've done a week of work experience. I worked professionally for that week alongside a professional, a council organisation. I've shown that I can handle myself appropriately in an adult work environment. And for an employer who's looking for an employee who's looking for their first job, that's actually something that's really good. That's actually something that they want to see because they're like, okay, if I take this person on, they are going to understand they have to have different standards of behavior because it is a professional working environment. So you can 100% include that. If you had any other kind of work experience, if you had done, say, babysitting, if you had done some paid work, even one-off at an event where maybe you'd helped as an usher or something like that, if you'd done some unpaid volunteer work experience, maybe in your school canteen, helping out on an aged care facility, even working at children's birthday parties, that kind of thing, you can put all of that information in there. Don't go overboard when you're describing the tasks and responsibilities that you've done because employers are not, they're usually pretty savvy people. You just make it clear what you've done and really talk up about the skills that you've developed and the kind of experience that you've got. So once you've got your actual work experience in, let's talk about some volunteering experience. Now you can include lots of different things in this section. You can include formal volunteering roles, maybe if you've done something every week for 6 months or so, or if you've participated in one-off events where you've gone and supported in a volunteer capacity. But you can also include informal things here. Like, so for example, if you take out your grandma shopping once a week and you've done that for the past year, you could even include that, particularly if you don't have a lot else to put in there, because it shows that you're reliable, you're dependable, that you can support other people, that you can turn up, and that you can do all of those things that an employer is wanting to see. So really think broadly about this, particularly if you don't have a lot of other experience or a lot else to put in your resume. So for Jordan, we're going to put in that they worked as an animal attendant at a dog shelter in 2021. And we're also going to put in some work they did in the college canteen. Careerville College in 2022 to 2023. To 2024, actually. Let's go and extend that by another year. So that sort of volunteering, you can get credit for that. That's the sort of thing that should be on a resume. And an employer who's interviewing someone who's applying for their first role will expect to see those kinds of things on your resume. So there's absolutely nothing wrong with putting those things on your resume and the years that you've done them. It also gives you the opportunity to talk about those things again in your interview. You can say, as I put in my resume, I did these volunteering activities, or I assisted in this kind of way. Now, with a lot of young people who are writing their first resume, we also can include a section about skills. Now, if you have multiple experience is in this section, if you've already got a lot of information in this resume, it's quite juicy and you're running out of space, you might already be quite down the bottom of your one single A4 page because you really want to keep it to one A4 page, then you might not want to put many skills in here at all, or you might actually want to remove this section entirely. It's a really good way to get more space, and if you're going to get more space anyway, get it by removing this section. But if you don't, like Jordan's resume is not quite one whole page yet, and we're going to have 2 referees, but we're still going to have a little bit of space. You can put in some things here that talk about your skills and strengths and interests. If you have a significant hobby and you think that hobby is related to the job that you're applying for, you can include that in this section as well. So if perhaps you are an avid cook and you cook regularly and you're applying for a fast food job as a team member, that's fantastic. They're going to really want to know that you really enjoy cooking and that's something that you're really interested in you do in your own time. So you could put that sort of thing in here. The other thing that we're going to want to see is this section gives you the opportunity to respond directly to the job description again. So most of the time in a job description, they're going to be talking about the specific skills that they're looking for. And that's really great that they do that, because when they do that, it gives you that information and you can respond directly to those skills. You don't have to make it up. You don't have to think, get inside their head. They're actually told you exactly what they're looking for. So make sure that you're going to be using those terms again and explaining how you think you have that skill. So for Jordan, we're going to say that Jordan has strong communication skills. Not very good spelling, but strong communication skills. With all types of people. So this is something that a lot of people are looking for, a lot of employers are looking for in their people who are applying for their first job. As long as you're able to back up the fact that you said that you have strong communication skills and that you can interact positively with all types of people, there's nothing wrong with you putting that on your resume. You just need to be able to say, well, yep, I have strong presentation skills. Look at the things that I've done in my English. I've done in-person presentations. I've delivered presentations via video. I've written essays. I've written emails to people. Look at my strong communication skills. The same with I interact positively with all different types of people. So you could then lean on some of the other things you've done to justify that. Now, I'm also comfortable with word processing technology, video conferencing software, which I feel like most young people should be comfortable with after the last few years, and social media. You can put your tech skills in there, particularly if you have tech skills that are relevant to your job. An awful lot of entry-level positions will require you to be able to use their specific software system, whether that's a point of sale system, sort of stock management, inventory management system. You're going to need to be able to use technology, and that's fine. And we know that young people are generally pretty great with technology. But it's important that you tell them, okay, cool, I have experience with technology. Look at the things that I have done with technology. These are the platforms that I'm particularly familiar with. If you've used Excel and you're really comfortable with Excel, you might want to put that in there as well. If you've built your own website, or if you've managed your own video blog platform, or you've done a podcast, any of those things, if you think that that's relevant to the job that you're applying for, you can definitely put them in there as well. And the other thing is, I'm going to say at the bottom, and as the last thing that I really want them to read, is that I'm highly flexible and willing to learn. I am strong, who's motivated to build experience. So most employers are going to want people who are keen. They're going to want to hire young people who are motivated and who are energized and who actually want to do this job, that they have chosen to apply for themselves, and that they're keen and they're willing to learn and willing to be there. We know that's a skill that employers look for, and they are particularly looking for it in young people who are applying for their first job, because they're not expecting you to have advanced skills in other areas, but they are expecting you to be keen and willing to learn. So you can put that in your resume, that you are keen, that you are flexible, that you're willing to be flexible, and that you are willing to learn. They're going to want to see that you have said that in there. It's going to come up well if there is any sort of automated scanning system. And it probably, I expect that those words, willing to learn and flexible, are probably going to be in most job descriptions for those kind of entry-level roles that we see. So it is really great if you can put something like that right down the bottom. So if they've read through the rest of your resume and they like what they're reading, they think that they might want to interview, you've just kind of sealed the deal at the end with that. Yep, I am really ready to go. I'm really willing to learn. I'm the right person for you, the person that you want to hire. Now, the last section in most resumes is going to be your referees. Referees are really important because these need to be people who can verify all the things that you've said, and they can verify that you're a good person who's going to do all the things that you've said you're going to do, and you're going to turn up on time and all those kinds of things. The employer is unlikely to know you personally, so they're going to want to talk to someone who knows you personally. So there are a couple of things. Avoid putting someone you're related to or someone that an employer might think that would have some sort of emotional or a relationship connection to. Because the employer is going to want to see people who can be impartial and who can give them an actual assessment of your capabilities. So you might want to pick a sports team coach, if you have a head of your year level at school, anybody who's managed you in some sort of volunteer capacity, somebody who managed you while you were doing work experience. Any of those people can be really great people to put down in your referee position. You're always going to want to list 2 referees. And I know some people do say references can be supplied on request at the bottom of their resume. I don't actually recommend that because it kind of says to the employer, oh, I haven't actually done that work yet. I'm going to make you do an extra step before you decide whether or not you want to interview me. Employers do ring referees. They do actually call these people, which leads me to my next point. It's really important that these people know that there's a good chance that they're going to get a phone call and they're going to be asked to talk about you. What that means is that you don't want to list someone who doesn't know that you've applied for a particular job or that you've listed them on their resume, because when an employer calls up and says, hi, I would love to have 5 minutes of your time to talk about so-and-so, Jordan, for example, if the person is come out of the blue and they weren't prepared for it, there's every chance that they'll say something like that to the employer. Oh, I didn't know, I was expecting a phone call. Or, oh, I haven't heard anything about it. And the employer immediately is going to think, this young person hasn't properly prepared and hasn't properly prepped their referee, and they haven't checked with the referee that that's an okay conversation for them to have. So 100% every single time before you list someone on your reference, make sure they know what you're actually doing. Make sure they know what kind of jobs that you're applying for, and they know if you're applying for more than one job, there's a possibility that multiple employers are going to be calling them, because then they can be smart about what they say to the employer, and they can talk about you in your best light and really tailor their response to the application that you've made as well. So we're going to want to include some information about that person in here. We're going to want to include their name. So this is a fictional person. And then the position that they had. And this is important because administration officer. So the employer who might be calling this person is going to want to know kind of what level they're at, what kind of relationship they might have had with you in some sort of supervisory capacity. They want a little bit of information before they make that phone call, so they're not going in blind. And then we're going to say the organization that they worked for as well. So you don't have to say this person supervised me while I was doing work experience. An employer will be able to work out that you did work experience as an administration officer at Careerville Regional Council. So this referee who's an administration officer at Careerville Regional Council is likely to have been the person who supervised you while you were there. Now, make sure as well that you include the phone number and their email address, and double check that you have the right one. So that can be another good conversation to have while you're on the phone, checking that that person is willing to be your referee. Make sure, hey, can I just check for a second? This is definitely your phone number and this is the best email to get you on. Because if the employer can't get through to that person, or if they have to do any legwork themselves, you're putting extra friction in there. And what we really want to do when we're writing our resume is reduce as much friction as possible. So, yeah, you're going to want to put in both of your references. Let's put in another one here. So we've got Jamie Lee, and this person was shelter manager for the dog shelter. Jamie at Yeps. And so then we've got both of our referees in here. Now, what you want to do once you've actually finished this email, other than press save if you're like me, is you're going to want to read through it again. So you're going to want to check that all of that information is in there and that it's all correct, that you've got the right years, you've got no wrong spelling, that everything's in there appropriately and that you haven't missed anything out. And then you're actually going to want to take this resume and you're going to want to give it to at least one adult who knows you well and get them to read it through. Get them to give you some feedback, get them to spot any major errors that they can see. If there's any spelling issues, you can ask them for their opinion on that. But make sure that you've had it read through by an adult before you send it off to any employer. Doing that check, it'll take you 5 minutes, but it gives you a lot more confidence, a lot more peace of mind before you send that resume off. And it's a lot more likely that you're going to hopefully get the interview that we are wanting to get out of this process. After all, that's the entire point of you writing a good resume, is that you're hoping that you're going to be able to get through to the next part of this process, to the next step here. So that was a really simple overview of how you can write a resume, how you can write your first resume. As I said, there will be the Word document templates will be in the comments, and you're also going to be able to download some sample resumes so you can read through what we've put for some other young people and think about what you might want to put in your resume. This is a working document. So you are not going to have one static resume that you use for multiple years. Almost every single time you apply for a job, you're probably going to want to go in, tweak that resume, make any changes, really adapt it for the job that you're applying for. So think of this as the first in a long series of resumes that you're going to write. And I wish you all the best with your job applications.